Hey everybody, hope you're doing well. Quick note on the audio issues. I have noticed that there's this latency issue with a couple of my more recent videos. So I moved over to my Altron setup and my Rode NT1A mic that I use for my music and my Scarlett Solo interface because I get much higher quality audio out of that. Much better than like my iMac mic. But now I'm noticing that there's this latency issue, which is a part of the module. So I will be sure to go into Adobe Premiere and tighten that up. You know, it's all work. So happy to do it for you guys. I wanted to get this vlog in really quickly before I head out in the morning. Is America becoming an emasculated, pussy-whooped culture? And I think obviously, yes. I think the answer for that is clear. But what might not be so clear is how and why and in what ways that manifests. I will never forget one day I was out here. I was walking around downtown Phoenix and I was waiting for the light rail because sometimes, you know, you go out walking and I'm like, I don't feel like walking back. I'm going to take the light rail. And I struck up a conversation with this woman who was my age. She was about 40 years old. And she said in passing to me, you know, she said, I don't know what's up with my 19-year-old son. Now that, you know, I find that interesting because that's my one of my pet projects, as you know, are these masculinity issues, and in particular, the male initiation thing. So I said, well, what do you mean? Just out of curiosity. And she said he has no interest in driving. None. And she's like, I don't remember ever being like that. I don't remember, certainly boys, like teenage boys of her generation, my generation, me, the way I was, we weren't like that at all. So a change definitely has happened. And I mean, very recently, even in the most recent generation. Because I remember, as you may too, like you just couldn't wait. I had like a calendar in my room where I was just itching to drive. I bought a car before I had a license. That's how eager I was. So I had these savings bonds from when I was like 13 for my bar mitzvah. I took them out prematurely to buy my first car. My 85 Honda Accord was $995. And we had this opportunity to buy it. It was a friend of my aunt's, and she found out through my aunt that we were in the market for buying a car, or that I was interested in getting my first car soon. And so she had that car for sale for $1,200 on Auto Trader or Recycler, when we had Recycler back then. And she said, hey, well, you know, we'll give it to you for $995 if you want to buy it, you know, soon. And we're like, no, just buy it. So I bought this car before I had a license and before I had insurance, and it just sat there on the curb. I remember going out there, like starting it up so it would always start up when I was ready. I had like 6 months to go until my birthday before I could get a license, and just like have my hands on the wheel and just fantasize about like, this is my car and I'm gonna get my friends together, you know, go to the beach and all that. And now fast forward to today, and this woman is telling me that her 19-year-old son, so he's way past the age where he could get a license. He's like, he doesn't give a shit about it. Unbelievable. So I go like, well, what does he do? And well, let's take a look at this single mother scenario. Okay. She gives him a debit card. She loads it up with $100 a month. And then he just calls Uber and Lyft and toots his little ass around town all day with that. And he doesn't care. Now, I am a fan of these independent driving apps and these companies, because why? Well, they've virtually eliminated the drunk driving issue, or made a big dent in it. And that's been proven. It really gives a job to anybody who wants one, which is phenomenal. And it's a great service. I use it, but it's the consciousness of where people are at that's what concerns me. That remember what I was saying about postmodernism. Postmodernism being just kind of a Halloween mask for Marxism and communism. So with Marxism, you don't own anything. Everything is kind of shared. And that's the appeal of living in a big city. It's like, well, the city is that's the attitude that I had. Like when I lived in Hollywood and I was just fucking LA. So at $1,200 a month got me a little rat hole apartment. Like it was so small. It was so small I could barely scratch my ass. It was depressing to be there, but my mentality at the time was, well, Hollywood is my apartment. Like, I'm going to go out. I'm going to be a part of this collectivist experiment. And then when you get older, what happens? Like, what's one of the telltale signs of conservatism is, no, I want to own things. I want a space that is mine. And that's the appeal of the suburbs, right? Or maybe even rural areas as well. This is my land. This is my space. It's like your little kingdom. And so for young men especially, to not desire the freedom and the independence that comes with owning, that is your car. That's yours. It's there for you. It's your property. And with that comes the joy of the responsibility of maintaining it, cleaning it. Sometimes you personalize it a little bit. I know girls are more into that probably than guys, at least on the inside with the fuzzy crap. But guys like painting. They like rims and stuff. Like, I used to tease kind of this ricer culture where you do it to sport imports and stuff. But no, actually, I think it's healthy because that car, even if it was a hand-me-down from your parents, you're going to make it your car. And so, you know, some of you guys kind of tease, especially muscle car owners and stuff, you tease the 19-year-old kid who like has the Honda Civic and he lowers it and he paints it and he puts rims on it. But you have to understand that he's turned it into an idol of speed. He's showing you that he values it and he's going to do everything he can to personalize that vehicle and have it symbolize, have it represent what he respects. You really have to pay attention to the cultural shifts. All the magazines that culture once, or that courted that culture once, the hot import nights events, the sport tuner magazines, they're all gone. It's like they can barely keep things going. They've got websites. The websites are shifting quite a bit. That is not where people's focus is. Where's their focus? Staring at the phone, staring at the phone, staring at the phone. So I think the analogy of the Matrix is really very fitting. When you've surrendered the focus of your life to being digitized, to being a digital experience, you miss out on other experiences. There is an economy of experience. I'm not saying give up your cell phone, go live like an Amish person. What I'm saying is that if you focus on one thing, that is going to come at the expense of something else. It's like if you're on a date with somebody or you're at dinner with your significant other and you spend half the time, that might be an improvement for some of us, doing this, then that means that hour that you spent doing that is an hour you could have spent having a meaningful conversation with that other person or looking into their eyes or getting the emotional feedback. So what do we have here? Well, we have a situation where, again, most of the teenagers when I was growing up, we got our first jobs because we wanted to own the car and we were responsible for gassing it up, paying for our own insurance. And that was the motivation to what? Work. And a lot of these jobs, working at a coffee shop, working retail, working at bussing tables at a restaurant, they weren't intended to be these lifelong careers, right? Oh, living wage, raw. I mean, go fuck yourself. Are you serious? Like, those jobs are for entry level people. And so when you keep hiking the minimum wage, you make that inaccessible to those individuals, people with low skill levels, people who are overqualified look down at that job now that you're overinflating the value. And that job begins to look attractive to people who should be moving on, who should be in more skilled areas of labor. So the minimum wage is a very bad thing. But what's worse than that is a culture of non-ownership, no ownership everywhere now. Rental bicycles, rental push e-scooters that litter all over the fucking place. I went to work. The South Park episode on that is hilarious. I love it. It makes me smile so much because, like, I live in one of these big metropolitan areas and those fucking things are everywhere. And someone just left it right in the middle of a parking space that was intended for a car. You know, and again, I'm not an anti-technologist. I'm saying, what is the appeal? You can't just sit there. I'm a libertarian. I'm a philosophical libertarian. I don't belong to the Libertarian Party because I think it's bullshit. But there's that Master Ken thing again. Bullshit. Libertarian Party is bullshit. Well, it is. It's gone the way of the SJW. You know. What is the appeal of a life where you don't own anything? And what is the moral high that people get off that? Like, I live lean, man. I live lean. I don't own things. Everything I have is borrowed. So now you don't have to assert yourself. This woman's 19-year-old can just get around, for $100 a month or less. And you say, okay, that's great. He's independent. Well, you're not really independent, kid, because you don't own anything. That's not your car. You don't have the freedom to pick it up and go wherever you want. You get to sit there and wait. And you're a passive passenger. That's the bigger part of this. The experience of driving means that is your vehicle. You go where you want to go. And he has never had the experience. Imagine this. A guy who's almost 20 years old has never had the experience of solitude behind the wheel of a car, listening to his music in his stereo, in his vehicle, living his life by his own terms. And we wonder why society's becoming emasculated, So this brings me to my other point. When safety, as Eric Peters likes to say. I love the EP Autos blog. I love the fact that Eric Peters he sees the importance of the driving experience he covers this also, the motorcycle riding experience and the philosophy of liberty, because freedom of motility goes hand in hand with that. So he covers this a lot, how the government and the EPA and all these safety regulations, they go in and they throw a wet blanket on cars. They make the cars more expensive to the point where they become inaccessible to people of nominal means. Where it used to be where back in the American dream days, the American family would buy a new car cash off the showroom floor every 3 to 5 years or so. Because it costs, $1,000, $2,000 or less. Even with some of that inflation and some of the safety crap, like my 85 Accord it was before mandated airbags and all that stuff. It was $8,000 new off the showroom floor. Name me one vehicle that cost that off the showroom floor. That means you could save up for a few months and you could buy it. Not anymore. You'd be hard pressed to get off the showroom floor in a new vehicle for less than $20,000. But you would be incorrect as a libertarian to just point your finger at the government and say, it's this evil nanny state that is doing this to me. And why is this happening? And if they would just fuck off, we'd be okay. Well, you'd be right in a sense, but those things don't happen without mass public consent. They're just doing what's in those individuals who work for the EPA and elsewhere and in these ninny state regulatory agencies. They have the same kind of consciousness that most of the people have, which is safety comes first. There's nothing more important than safety. And if you don't want to be safe, the government's going to force you to be safe. You don't want to ride a motorcycle with a helmet or a bicycle with a helmet. In some places, the town I grew up in, the cops would pull over kids for riding bicycles without helmets and give them tickets that they had to take home to their parents and pay. You must be safe because you're an asset to the government. They want to suck your blood in the form of taxes for the rest of your life. So they have a vested interest in keeping you safe. But the attitude of the people in government is merely a reflection of the public consciousness. And as of late, the public consciousness says, well, if you ask the public, your average person, like, well, what degree of danger, not risk, because that could imply, stocks and bonds and all this. No, danger, life and limb. Do you feel is acceptable in your day-to-day reality? They'd probably say none. Oh, no, you got to eradicate that. Where does that come from? Where does the will to eradicate danger as if there's no upside? There's no upside. So pay attention. Right now, virtually every major auto manufacturer is heavily invested and involved at a rapid, hyper-competitive clip to produce self-driving cars. Like out here in Arizona, they're all over the place. They're the Google ones, you've got them buzzing around. They're buzzing around all day. The Uber ones all day long. They got the driver, the human babysitter sitting there with his hands in his lap while it's farting itself around. And that is merely a reflection of where the public consciousness is. And what the public consciousness wants is, I don't want to have to deal with that. The decadence And that's really the crux of the issue, where you're so comfortable that everything feels like pain. Everything. You don't want to be inconvenienced for a damn thing. You don't want to get up off the couch. Giving up your freedom to drive your own car and accept the risks that that entails is not worth it to you. You want 30 more minutes of doing this. And you're willing to give up your private ownership of a vehicle or the ability to drive your own vehicle so that you could do this for 20, 30 minutes, 1 hour longer than you already do every fucking day. Tell me that isn't a mass distortion of human values. Like, no wonder we're losing everything. So think twice before you think, well, the evil government's here to what? Take your rights away, take away your right to drive. Because think about it this way. Rights are lost when they're not exercised. When you don't care about them anymore, why wouldn't the government just, okay, well, you don't need that. You're not going to fight for it. You're not going to picket. Were people picketing in front of the EPA like, we don't want fuel efficient cars. We want cheap cars. We don't want safe cars. We want cars at all levels available for everybody. I want to drive. I need to be able to buy a new car for $5,000. No. We sat passively by and let it happen because of the illusion of wisdom and the illusion of control that our overlords in government give us. Like, oh, well, someone's got to be keeping us safe. 'Cause I don't know how to be safe. Do you see how our consciousness is not fully adult yet? We're not really developed as adults. Like, who are these idiots that can tell us what to do? They're not keeping you safe. It's like only you can assess the risk. Every time you get into a vehicle, every time you are doing, in fact, a risk-benefit analysis. People fucking get killed in vehicles every single day, despite the airbags, despite the ABS, despite the crumple zones. When you get in your car to go to work in the morning, you are, in fact, making a cost-benefit analysis. Well, I could die, but then again, I got to live and I got to pay the bills, and I sure do like my independent life, and I sure do like feeding my kids or myself or whatever it is. So I'm going to take that risk and go to work. You might not be conscious of it. You might have the illusion of safety because you're all cozy in your cage, but that's not the reality of the situation. And the truth is, people die every day, crossing the street, slipping in the bathtub. So the height of decadence means that we live in a civilization that is trying its damnedest to eradicate risk because you want to be protected from any and all perceived threats, and you value that more. I'm using you in a general term, not you specifically, obviously. You value that more than freedom. What is freedom but the ability to experience what you want to experience? That's what they're depriving you of. So this 19-year-old who doesn't care about driving doesn't know. It's just like 1984. It's gone down the memory hole. He doesn't know what it's like, and may never know what it's like, to feel like be in that solitary mode of thought and introspection, just driving down at night in his car. He said he's got some stupid driver who's listening to his music, and you're just sitting in the back saying, whoa, what's the difference? I'm getting to where I need to be. The PC culture, the SJW culture, and the way they language themselves is a direct example of this, where not only do I want my physical body protected by regulation in the government, I want my feelings protected. We need to protect people from speech, and they have the SJWs and the university culture, they have a lexicon that goes with it that mirrors that exactly. They're microaggressions. Well, you hurt my emotional self. They're microaggressions. I need to be protected from inequalities. I need to be protected from the patriarchy. I need to be protected from toxic masculinity. This is when things become so safe. So our ancestors fought and bled for the freest country the world has ever seen. And with that has come an unprecedented degree of economic liberty and well-being and stability for more people per capita than any other nation in the world. And what people tend to do with that is they become decadent. They go, well, I want to be even safer. I want to be even more protected. I want to be even more insulated. And the government is happy to slip on in and go, hey, well, we're here responding to that. We elect those people. Nobody. I used to have this political science, not a political science, was high school. It was like government teacher. And of course he was a dumb socialist, but he would always say, hey, were people out in front of City Hall yelling and screaming when this happened? He's like, he made a good point. He's like, okay, so, when the government passes laws that outlaw driving your own car, where will you be? Because that's coming. Here's the thing. No, it's not. They would never do that. Well, again, remember what I said. You lose the rights you don't exercise. So if this millennial brat, this 19-year-old who doesn't give a damn about driving, when that becomes 51% of the population, it's like, you got Lyft, you got Uber, and then what they'll do is they'll have automated cars that do that, self-driving cars. And then these companies will get together and they'll petition the government to say, okay, we got to do away. We've proven this technology that it's safe, because that's the most important thing. And we got to do away with these laws that force a human backup driver behind the wheel. We got to just do away with that. And they'll get their way. And then all it takes is a slight majority of the consumers to say, oh, okay, and say, well, let's pass a law. It just says, well, from this point forward, no more steering wheels in cars. It's too dangerous. And then that'll be it. But liberty doesn't mean anything to people anymore because they don't understand the fact that comes with accepting the danger, accepting the risk. Now, in case you think I'm wrong, I'm looking at some statistics here. I'll try to find it and put it up here on the screen. I got to head out real soon. I've been getting into motorcycles recently, and that is a way to, for me at least, welcome some danger into my life. So again, when I tell people this, it's about, 90% negative. Oh my God, that's dangerous. Like, don't you know that? It's like, yeah, I do. There are intelligent ways to manage risk, to manage danger. You can get training. I'm going to overinvest in my training. Training is what keeps you alive, riding a motorcycle, as I'm learning. So does safety equipment, safety gear, staying off alcohol, staying alert, not riding in the rain, at least not when you're a beginner. Not getting your first motorcycle shouldn't be a leader bike. It should be, down there, 300 cc's ish. Like, don't get a bike that's going to get ahead of you in your skill level. But is there more risk than driving a car? Yeah, but what? Therefore, don't do it? Is that where did that equation come into play? As if there's no upsides. Someone who is decadent, someone who is obsessed with safety would say the danger is the only thing. Avoiding the danger is the only thing that matters. There is no upside. And of course, anyone who's an avid motorcyclist knows, well, the upsides are tremendous. Like the feeling of being on that bike. Like there are people, of course, who couldn't see themselves living without it. That's how they learn to manage the risk. It's like, yeah, but I can't imagine my life not doing this. Not everybody's that way. But the feeling is so tremendous and it brings them so much happiness and enjoyment and pleasure in life that they go, okay, well, there's some risk. So I'm going to learn how to mitigate that risk. Living without that pleasure is just not an option. Danger avoidance as the number one thing. And the government caters to that. And now it's at the level of feelings. Guns, very similar. People who are for gun control, even though gun control does not make people safer, it makes people vulnerable to attack from evil people. But they don't like the idea of this freedom. They don't like the idea of that risk. Well, that guy over there, like, I don't like the idea that he could have a gun. You got to make me feel safe. And they're scared of guns. It's, oh my God, it's a weapon. They don't want to educate themselves. Same thing. Like I've got, if you've got guns in the house, it's like, well, I used to be very nervous around guns. Most people are. It's like, oh my God, this thing, like it's a gun. But then you learn about it. You take a fucking class. You go, oh, well, it's a machine, a very simple machine. It operates on very simple principles, and making it safe to the point where it is physically impossible for the gun to go off is very, very easy, very, very simple. And you don't need to be afraid of the fucking gun. You safe direction, pointed down, you remove the source of ammunition, you clear the chamber, double, triple, quadruple check, put your little finger in there. Look, okay, it's clear. Dry fire. It can't possibly go off. There's no fucking round in it, nor is there any way for a round to get into it. Ignorance. So all my idiot friends and coworkers and shit that go, oh, be careful. I say, I'll do you one better than be careful. I will make sure that I'm really fucking well trained so that I can manage my own risk. What does that even mean, be careful? What that means is I'm scared for you and you should be scared. So anyway, I'm digressing from my point where you're seeing this absolute plummeting drop in motorcycle ownership. Young people are not getting into it. The Harley, and I'm not knocking you if you're an older guy on a Harley, but that's becoming like an old man's thing, just like driving classic hot rods around was. That motorcycle crews and motorcycle gangs and the original European cafe racer culture was young guys, college age guys, guys in their 20s. Because why? Motorcycles, cheap freedom, cheap vehicle. So if you're young, that's just what you get. And so one reason, ironically, why motorcycling is so dangerous is because everybody's so concerned with safety that people would rather have cars. So if we were like in a country where people valued the inexpensive modes of transportation, you'd have cars and scooters everywhere, like in Vietnam and other a lot of Asian countries, and then people would be more aware of them. They're like, oh, well, these things are everywhere, so you got to watch out for them. So it's like the liberty starts declining as people start discarding it. But you look at the trend. You look car ownership down. I am predicting a collapse of the auto market. Like the only people who will sell cars, they'll only sell cars to Lyft and Uber drivers or robot cars. Total collapse of that whole segment of human experience. Right now, you look at motorcycles. Why? Well, motorcycles don't have the safety. Young people want the safety and they don't want to own things. So the freedom is an experience. Freedom is something that you own and that you accept the danger and you flirt with it. You play with the danger. I find that attractive. Now, didn't when I was younger, again, because I was indoctrinated by these values. If you think there's just no upside, you see the motorcycle and you're like, there's no upside to that. There's just death. It's like, well, you've got a weird outlook on life, pal. Doesn't mean you have to do it. If you don't feel the cost benefit is there, that's fine. But it's like you don't see the appeal of it at all. Oh, weird. And you're seeing this trend being reflected in the market right now, plummeting. Harley can't keep up. Now they got to make an electric motorcycle. They're losing. Harley Davidson is losing its brand image to try to cater to this. Well, we got to make an electric motorcycle because everybody wants electric. Do you want your freedom, or do you deal with a little smog as a free person, or do you want the government to mandate, like Ocasio-Cortez, AOC, airhead, orating communism? I'm making a t-shirt that has that on it with her fucking idiot gopher face on it. Or do you want a government that mandates electrified vehicles and then what? The minimum cost of those is what, 30 grand at least? And you got to plug it in everywhere you go. It's eradicating the freedom for you to live the way that you used to live. And the vision for that is right there. Keep me safe from the imaginary evils. Keep me safe from the imaginary ills of fossil fuels. Keep me safe from any and all accidents. So therefore, remove the ability for me to define my own risks on my own terms. So will the government ever do away with the Second Amendment, take our guns away? Well, if the public consciousness shifts to the point where they're convinced that guns are bad and that it's just too risky. Oh, it's too risky to let civilians own guns. So what? Now you live below the cops. I don't have anything against cops and soldiers, but cops and soldiers are the only ones that get to be armed. That means they're above you. It's not about, oh, I'm going to take on the government one day. It's like, no, well, it's more of the statement of, cops and soldiers, they start their lives as civilians. They have their careers in those areas, and then typically they go back to being civilians a lot of times. So it's the idea that they're not really above me. They have a job. It's an important job, but they're not above me. I'm not below them. And I have a right to defend myself and feel secure in my own person. Defend myself. But the people who are against the Second Amendment and civilian gun ownership, they're just too worried about what their neighbor could do to have any compassion for that person's ability to defend themselves at all. They displant that with this utopian fantasies. Like, well, they shouldn't have to do that anyway. The government should protect them. So, look at these statistics. Look at car ownership with young people going down instead of up. Look at the popular notions of minimum living wages and the government taking care of people, and the fact that young people would rather take cell phones and convenience. Just look at the segment, right? Look at how motorcycle ownership plummeting, cell phone ownership nearly universal, right? It's actually peaked It's hit complete saturation. So the young people have to have the latest shit, the latest gadget, the latest thing. But there's no interest in the human experience, the experience of what. Don't you have any balls, kid? Like, don't you want to have that experience of that wind in your face or cruising in your own car and the freedom and the independence of that analog, tactile experience? I could get 5 more tweets in that time. Things really have changed, and it fucking sucks. It's not good. We should be concerned. That's all I got for today. God bless. Thanks so much.